After further review, should the Saints sit Derek Carr versus the Panthers? This is kind of a complex issue. Okay, there's a lot to unpack here, ladies and gentlemen. There's a lot to talk about here. You got to kind of factor it in a couple of different ways. You got to factor it in from Derek Carr's point of view. You got to factor it in from the game point of view. What gives the Saints the best chance to win this particular game? And then you have to look at it from the front office point of view of moving forward, next season, locker room culture, how you're building the roster, all those things. And we're going to get into every single one of them.
There's a very legitimate question to be asked about whether or not Derek Carr certainly should play this week.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a very legitimate question to ask if he should play over the final month of the season. Considering the shoulder injuries, that's of course the AC joint he hurt in the first month of the season.
Let's start with the injuries. Let's start with the base level of what we have in front of us, ladies and gentlemen. So Derek Carr has been really banged up this year. I mean, you're talking about 2 times he's been in the concussion protocol, AC sprain against the Packers. Now his shoulders hurt again, and now he has a back injury / rib injury. So from a player perspective, 2 concussions that are 2 concussion protocol situations that close to each other, that is kind of problematic, because if another one happens, more than likely you're done for the season. Okay, so you do kind of have to protect him in a sense with these injuries, and it probably would be good to just give him at least a week off. At least a week to kind of figure everything out, get out of the protocol, make sure you're good, nurse the shoulder, nurse the back, nurse the ribs, whatever. There's no reason in going back out there, getting hurt again, and then going through this again. So strictly speaking, from a medical point of view, and I'm no medical professional, okay, but I would lean towards holding him out for this game.
The injury he had on Sunday, also Dennis Allen disclosed rib injury. And then this is now the second time in 4 weeks that he's been in the concussion protocol.
Yeah.
At some point, you legitimately look back and say, all right, do you have to protect your investment? In the way, I know it's not exactly the same because of the optics, but in many ways it's exactly the same. It's what happened with Tua last year with Miami. And Tua had a couple of really scary.
I think the optics he's talking about is that the Tua injuries were very in your face. I mean, Tua's concussions, his hands did the thing where they seize up, like when a fighter gets knocked out. It was on national television. It was very scary. The league takes head injuries seriously, or certainly more serious than they did 10 years ago. So to see someone be knocked out like that, the optics are way worse. Carr, we don't even know if he had a concussion. We just know he was in the protocol. He got hit hard, and now the NFL kind of, when you take a shot to the head like that, if you have any symptoms, you go in the protocol. So optically, yeah, it's way different. Moments when he was concussed, and I know we talked about this at the time, and I don't mean for any to minimize this, but when Tua was concussed in the game where he locked up, we saw his hands and his fingers lock up. If you watch combat sports, if you watch boxing or MMA, this is common in MMA, you will see guys, when they get knocked unconscious, their body lock up like that. So while that was, I think, scary for a lot of people, it was very common for people that watch. Quite honestly, people get concussed often, which I love MMA, and that happens. Here's the big difference, and I know this is a different conversation for a different day. The difference between combat sports and the NFL or basketball or baseball or any professional sport is that when a fighter gets knocked out, they don't have to fight for another year. They don't have to fight for another 6 months, 8 months, 10 months. They could go 2 years without fighting. When a professional athlete in the major sports gets knocked out, they're expected to play the next week. Like if we saw a fighter get concussed and lock up and freeze up and all that stuff, and then we heard he was fighting 7 days later, people would be like, this is a bit much. This is kind of crazy, right? This is not something, this is certainly not something that we need to be doing. That's when it becomes like human cockfighting. Pause. You know what I'm saying? So it is a different with combat sports, or it is a different situation with combat sports and pro sports. That's the whole thing with Carr and Tua, where if a fighter gets knocked out and he
waits a month, no problem. If Derek Carr gets knocked out and he waits a month, he's missed 4 or 5 games. So,
but it doesn't take away from the very real situation that, you know, when you have multiple severe head injuries in a short amount of time, you have to sit back and let yourself heal. And
I got to mention this. We got the Bud Lights on the countertop here. So we got 2 LSU Bud Lights in the aluminum bottles, which I love an aluminum bottle. And then we got 2 regular cans. Now here's my question mark, ladies and gentlemen. This can on the right is open. Somebody is crazy for this. Someone was sitting in the studio, saw a lukewarm Bud Light and said, I got to get a hold of it. I got to crack this bad boy open. And then they said, maybe I should just throw it away. You know, I took it, opened it, drank a lukewarm Bud Light in the bathroom, did what I had to do on a Tuesday morning. We've all been there. But then to put it back for the world to see that you cracked open a cold pop in front of God and everybody. Damn, I mean, we're looking at rock bottom here.
And get to a point where you feel like you can actually go back and play and be effective again. So Tua missed 4 games a year ago as a result of those concussions.
Yeah.
And I think it's, listen, if Derek Carr passes the protocol and is cleared to return, he's going to play. I think we could probably all understand that. But I also think that it is the very real, sensible, practical thing to do to look at that situation and say, man, it's probably worth it for you to think about your life and make sure that you're as healthy as you can be before you give this a go again. It's also...
All right, so that's the Carr standpoint. Carr, I think, if you're in his camp, the only thing you're concerned about is kind of the same thing that you'd be concerned about in the front office or whatever else, is you're concerned that if you're under so much pressure, you're under so much fire right now, if you take a step back and you allow Jameis to play the Panthers, one of the 2 worst teams in the NFL, and he lights it up, that's just going to crank the heat up on you even more. That's just going to crank the pressure up even more. So that is a real thing you don't want to be a part of. You know, if Jameis goes out there and we look good against Carolina, which we should, and we win 35-3, and Jameis throws 5 touchdowns at 400 yards, you don't think the fan base is going to be saying, go with Jameis, do not come back, do not show me Derek Carr again? So then what happens if Jameis does that, Derek Carr comes back, and Derek Carr throws an interception on the first possession? You don't think that there's going to be immediate boos? You don't think that there's going to be an immediate divide in the fan base of we want to see Jameis again? And let's say you give Jameis 2 games. You feed him the Panthers and the Giants, the 2 softest, easiest possible games to face. And I know a lot of people are going to comment and say, I don't care. You know, like, I don't care about Derek Carr's feelings, or I don't care about the divide. I don't care about whoever put the better player on the field. Well, I got bad news for you. The front office cares. Mickey Loomis cares. The coaches care. All they care, because they put $150 million into this guy. So it's not Madden, where it's just put the better player in. Who cares? They're just people on a roster. That is certain. That is not it. All right. There's a lot more to this than that. You know, you got to factor in everything. You got to factor in everything down to jersey sales. You got to factor in everything down to marketing. You know, like that's. And if you don't think these teams are doing that in the NFL, I got bad news for you. They are. I can guarantee you dollars and marketing and, the perception of a player, the perception of a team, draft capital, all that stuff, that is pushing decisions. That is 100% factoring into a lot of these roster decisions.
Why you pay Jameis Winston the money you pay him as a backup quarterback. Elevate Jake Haener to be your backup in this time. You'd have Taysom Hill available as well as an emergency situation if you decided to go that route. But I think as this week goes along, and look, tomorrow's Wednesday, we'll get the first injury report of the week, and the Saints are playing the Carolina Panthers, who have 1 win on the season. And I'm not necessarily saying that this because of who the opponent is. Maybe subconsciously that factors in a smidge, but the reality is in the NFL, it's any given Sunday, and Carolina Panthers have won a game this year because anybody can win a game on a given Sunday. Look, yesterday, Jacksonville was a 10-point home favorite on Monday Night Football, and Jake Browning went and threw for 350 and beat him outright.
One of the worst nights of my life. I had the Jacksonville Jaguars in my Survivor contest, DraftKings Survivor. Lasted all the way to this point, full shoved. I had 4 entries left, I believe, on Jacksonville. I mean, we're talking, if you survive these contests, you're talking like a 6-figure payout. And I had Jacksonville, and Jake Browning had the greatest game of his career and ended my Survivor chances.
So, look, the win that Carolina has is against the Texans. And there's few teams in the NFL playing as well because of C.J. Stroud, who's about to shatter the NFL rookie passing record to over 5,000 yards. So, yes, I think I will be very interested to see what the injury report looks like when it comes out. Hey,
so let's wrap this up. So I think from Carr's standpoint, it's probably better physically to sit out. From the team standpoint, you do run a risk with Jameis and dividing the locker room, dividing the fan base or whatever, but you do have $150 million into this guy. You do have to kind of protect him. He is banged up. It is a game where Jameis can win it, where you can sit Carr. And if Jameis is average, then you're okay with bringing Carr back. You know, no harm, no foul. So I would lean to sitting Carr. I would lean to sitting him, letting him kind of heal up, get better. Because the last thing you want to do is force him out there when he's hurt. Then he struggles because he's hurt against the Panthers, and then the narrative explodes. So you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't with that. I would let Jameis go out there and do it. I would let the team try and go handle business against Carolina, and I would try and protect my investment of Derek Carr. So that, that's how I would look at it. And the coaches, from the coaching standpoint, I don't think it changes too much either as far as what you can do. You obviously don't want to put in a backup who you don't have faith in, or a backup that can't run your offense, or a backup that's going to give you a worse chance to win. But I don't think that's the case with Jameis. I think Jameis is a very capable backup. I think he's a good backup. And I think we would be fine in his hands. I don't think it would change the offense much at all. So that's what I would do. Let me know in the comments below. Would you sit Derek Carr? Why would you sit Derek Carr? Or if you would. And if you wouldn't sit him, why would you not? Let me know down below. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. I will see you in the next video.